Welcome back. In this video, we are going to talk about default method. What is default method? What is the purpose of default method? And how we are going to implement default method in our code. So let's start. The first question is, what is default method? Default method is a concrete method which we are going to implement inside an interface. How we are going to write a default method? Let's see this. We are going to write a default method with the help of a default keyword. After that, return type. And then method name. Here we are implement arguments as per our requirement, open braces and close braces. And inside open brace and close brace, our own function implementation. This is how we are going to write default method. Now we are going to write default method inside an interface. Interface name. This is how we are going to write default method inside an interface. After this, one more question arises. What is the purpose of default method? To understand this, first of all, we need to understand what is the purpose of interface. The purpose of interface to provide a base design implementation for project. Let's understand this concept with the help of an example. Let's take an interface test.
Here we will take three abstract methods, public void m1, m2 and m3.
After that, these three abstract methods we are going to call inside in three different classes, class A, class B and class C. So what we have done here? We have written a base frame implementation inside an interface test, and after that we have called these three operations inside in class A, class B and class C. This is the requirement of our project, and okay, this is the job of a project. Now after some time, this completion of this project, we needed some more modification. Let's say some addition of two values we needed inside in class A but not in class B and not in class C. Then what we will do? We will implement default method here and we will do the calculation here, and after that we will call this value inside in class A as per our requirement. Okay, not in class B, not in class C. So what is the purpose of a default method? The purpose of a default method is to provide a concrete implementation inside an interface, and this implementation will get called inside as per required classes. The only reason this default method is introduced to give more stability, or you can say modification capability to a particular project. So we understood this one. Now the third question is how we are going to implement default method in our code. So we have written one default method classes here, and we are going to take an interface. Let's say the interface name will be library, and inside this interface library we will keep one default method. Let's say default method name will be book. So we already know that how we are going to write default method. Default keyword we are going to use. After that, return type. Let's say in this section, return type will be void. Method name will be book. Right now no arguments required. Inside we are going to pass one system.out.println, and what we are going to display? Physics book. So default method we have created. Now we are going to call this default method inside our main class. How we are going to do that? First of all, we are going to implement this library interface inside in this class. So let's implement this one. Implement library. After implementation, what we will do, we will create a reference name of default method, and with the help of a new operator, we'll create the object and save that object inside in that reference. And after that, with the help of that reference, we'll call that default method which is saved inside an interface. Default method dot book. Now let's execute this code. Output came physics book. Now after some time period, we will think that we don't need this default. I don't want this default physics book. I will take mathematics book in from the library. So what we are going to do? We will simply override this default method. How we are going to do that? We will write a public void book. Let's execute this code again. Overridden happen, and now it is showing. Now our next section is to understand default method with respect to inheritance. We already know that in one class we can inherit multiple interfaces. Okay, now we are trying to understand how we will going to write if multiple interfaces are there, and all these multiple interfaces have only one default method, then how we are going to solve the ambiguity problem. So let's see this. We will take two interface. One is commercial library, another one is public library. Okay, and inside in this interface we will write two same default method. So let's write this one. We have written two interfaces, commercial library and public library. And now we will write default method. Same default method we are going to write. So in this default method, commercial library has physics book and public library has chemistry book. Commercial library and public library interface, we have same method, default method, but inside commercial library interface we have physics book and inside here chemistry book. Okay, now we are going to call these two interfaces inside default method. How are we going to do that? Just I told earlier that in both the interfaces in default in we can in interface section we can call multiple interface. We can implement multiple interfaces. We did this one. Now let's execute this code. Mathematics. So we have overriding both the concept here, commercial library and physics library operations inside this overridden book method. So because of this, book method is coming. Let's remove this one. Okay, and now here it comes the ambiguity problem. We need to resolve which section we wanted to call, commercial library or public library. Then what we will going to do, we will write those interface name which section we want. For example, let's say I want right now physics book, not chemistry book. So I will call from commercial library dot super dot method name physics book. Now let's say I don't want physics book, now I want chemistry book. How we are going to do? Nothing. We just have to call this interface here public library dot super dot book method. Now execute this code and we will see the answer is chemistry. So this is how we are going to use default method. So guys, this is the end of this video tutorial. In the next video tutorial, we are going to talk about static method. So keep watching Java 8. Thank you.